Okay, hello everybody. I think we can start with such an exciting topic. I think we start with a short introduction round. Yeah, let's start.
Okay. Hi, is this okay? Yeah. Hi, I'm Susannah Evans. I work at 𝗓𝗃𝗏𝗏 GmbH, which is working on the Cosmos ecosystem, and specifically, I am the product lead for the team that's working on the 𝗣𝗶𝗁𝗍 implementation, which is the inter-blockchain communication protocol, and this is the implementation which is used by all Cosmos blockchains. Before I started at 𝗓𝗃𝗏𝗏, I was working for the 𝗧𝗏𝗍𝗏𝗏 validator, and then before that I did a PhD in biomanufacturing, so nothing really at all to do with cryptocurrency, but I started to develop an interest in the space during my studies and decided to ditch the previous ambition to work in pharmaceutical industry and move over to a more exciting, fast-paced industry, in my opinion. So yeah, that's me.
Thank you.
Okay, hi, I'm Anna. I work as a project and product manager at Centrifuge, and I'm sitting on this panel here today because Centrifuge is currently working on the cross-chain strategy and how we can connect our DeFi protocol with more DeFi liquidity. So I'm leading that project, and yeah, the protocol is based on Ethereum, but we're also currently building a product on Centrifuge chain, which is a parachain in the Polkadot ecosystem. And yeah, over to you.
Hi, I'm Andreas. I'm CEO of Consensus Services. We are a staking provider. That's probably why I'm on the topic, because we support multiple chains and we kind of want to interconnect those chains. That is a subsidiary of Finoa, which might be better known because it's a crypto custodian regulated in Germany. As such, by the way, also supporting Centrifuge from the start.
I know.
I'm happy you made it to the parachain, because in the beginning it was still in ERC20, if we remember correctly.
Yeah.
So happy that you launched there. Yeah. Alberto, up to you.
Thanks. Can you hear us? Yeah. Okay. Hi, I'm Alberto. I'm head of infrastructure growth in Polkadot in Parity Technologies. Previously, I was actually also in Finoa before Andreas joined. So I also had to do some stuff with the Centrifuge people when working at Finoa. So now I work on finding and enabling teams that will enhance the experience in Polkadot, mostly in infrastructure. So wallets, APIs, explorers, all these different topics. So I think the topic of this panel is very fitting and very interesting one, specifically for the offerings that are out there in the market for infrastructure and how to bring this all together in a way that will, in the end, benefit the community at large. So, great to be here.
Cool, thank you very much. Happy to have you here. Interoperability is one of the most sophisticated or hard to implement topics in a blockchain. But before we going into the discussion, let's answer the question why we need so many blockchains. Why we just don't stay on Ethereum or even Bitcoin and avoid such a high complexity?
Well, I think every blockchain is different. Essentially, it's built on different tech stack. It's got different consensus algorithms. I mean, I think you could ask the same question, like, why do we have so many countries in the world? I think, like, people want things to be done in different ways. Kind of groups form around specific, like, communities, specific ideas. People have different opinions on what technology is superior than one way and which approach is actually better for scaling or things like this, or even interoperability. So I think that's just kind of like a market force of kind of allowing consumers to have choice as well. I guess it would be interesting to see which layer ones come out as more dominant and potentially taking a majority of the share. But I think essentially, yeah, people want choice and people rally around different things. So it's kind of like a natural thing to occur, I think.
So I think when most of the layer ones emerged, there was not really yet a solution. How can we fit as many transactions as possible? Like layer 2s probably weren't a thing yet, same as like zero-knowledge rollups. And I think every blockchain is specialized on a specific topic. And in the beginning, when something new starts, it's clear that like everyone starts working on something and then they create a new chain. And I think over time, we will see who is going to stay and who is going to merge, or maybe even that's why the topic also of interoperability is so big these days, because now people realize, okay, we need to work together actually to make it work. So yeah, it gets, we spread the knowledge outside of our blockchain and crypto bubble.
Well, I can only second what you said, you both. Maybe I have a little of a provocative take on this, right? Because we surely do not need as many blockchains as we have at the moment. And there are lots of layer ones that really do not provide additional value on what we have already. And in the crisis that we have at the moment as a bear market, we can expect consolidation. I don't know how many alternate internet nets we had, especially of the bigger players in the 90s. Somehow only one internet survived. I'm not saying there's only one blockchain for all, although I'm an Ethereum bull, right? But I just think we see a very strong consolidation, and people want choice, yes, but if you have a Turing complete smart contract platform, what more choice do you need, right? Obviously there's room for a very high performing, very specific, application specific blockchains, that is, and that is where ecosystems like Polkadot and Cosmos, I think, have a great future. But if you think about pure layer one smart contract platforms, there's room for a few, right? And can't give you a number, but it's definitely not hundreds as we have at the moment. So it's about what additional value do you bring, and it's about also about product market fit, at least effort in usage. So Ethereum had lots of shortcomings. By the way, moved to proof of stake today, right? But the proof of work Ethereum had lots of shortcomings and still was by far the most successful smart contract platform until this morning running on proof of work. And that is because it was there at the right time and you had the market momentum on Ethereum. Even though other blockchains might be better, we still stuck on Ethereum for most of the time. So again, big consolidation, I think, is to be expected. And lots of the layer ones that we have out there, I don't see them having a good or a promising future.
Centralized solution provider has spoken.
Yeah.
So just to add up on that, I actually agree with you. There are many layer ones that are not needed, but also, you know, the fact that they're there, it means that the choice is still open, the market is still open, right? And who knows who is going to dominate the market later on. You know, now we have several chains that were pretty much in existence some years ago, and now they're really up there as the most used ones, right? So the fact that I like is that, I mean, I love Bitcoin, period, right? Ethereum is great, but I think that we start to see sort of a paradigm shift for all these applications that compete for space in Ethereum blocks, right? In the mainnet, where everything starts getting clogged up, where all these applications start to see the need for their own chain, you know, and we start to see several examples of this, even ApeCoin, DYDX, and so on, that move using the Cosmos SDK to create application-specific blockchains. This is also the Polkadot approach, right? To say, you know, I think we're trying to go to the same thing, but in a different, with a different methodology. But we find out that this mind shift to decide that you don't need to participate necessarily in paying Ethereum, let's say, to the Ethereum blockchain, because you can actually extract all that to your own blockchain, to your own application-specific blockchain, and operate under your own rules, and operate with other blockchains that are also connected with this kind of same framework, or with these other channels that are bespoke, built for this communication sort of interoperability, right? When you just stay in something like Ethereum that is fantastic in smart contracts, but it's just on applications, then we see that you need these scaling solutions that are all layer twos. But it's kind of the same thing that Cosmos is doing and that Polkadot is doing. Instead of they're not application-specific blockchains, they're just the same blockchain, just optimized for transactions and so on. So as we see new use cases, be it gaming, be it DeFi, be it identity, be it whatever, then we're going to see how all these new projects are tweaking for all these different things that they prefer. And I think we're going to start preferring something of a blockchain for themselves that suits their needs, instead of having to conform or with the rules of a specific environment, of a specific layer one that says it has to be done this way.
Thank you very much. It seems we almost have consensus on this topic.
Let me add one point to that, because that's actually interesting. And the centralization, of course, triggered me. By the way, for a custodian, it's great to have as many tokens as possible to support, in a sense. When you're adding new chains to the mix, you're not doing anything for decentralization. You're doing quite the opposite, because you're usually introducing new ecosystems which are very decentralized from the start. Decentralization is a process, right? And if you add, and nothing against those chains, by the way, Avalanche and Solana and stuff to the mix, you're adding more centralized ecosystems. You need chains, you need bridges between those ecosystems. Well, they have a centralization problem as well. Another problem is security. You're introducing new attack vectors. So if you want this new world of more chains, that's what I'm saying, you need to add more value, right? And that's what I'm questioning. What's the value of adding more chains? Also, because it's great to have a new blockchain, an application-specific blockchain, but you need to bootstrap blockchains. We just had the example with Centrifuge moving to become a parent chain, and that was surely a painful process, right? That takes effort. Again, for the effort that you're doing to bootstrap all those new ecosystems, what's the additional value that you're bringing? And that's you always need to question yourself, right?
True, very interesting. Nevertheless, if we like it or not, having so much blockchains, we have it now. And there are different approaches, how to handle it. Yeah, we already heard the term crosschain from we already heard about multichain. Vitalik stated in his famous article that our future is multichain or could be multichain. But the fact is, we have currently a huge landscape of different bridges, and in fact, the most blockchain traffic we have now is cross-chain. Huge names like, if we take DeFi area, Uniswap, and similar, in the cross-chain strategy. Why? Why we don't move fast into this beautiful future with unlimited resources, with no struggles with security, while we are staying in a cross-chain?
Well,
I had no idea.
Such a good question. Wow.
well, I guess you would be more of a supporting not to do cross-chain, right? Because if you're saying you're an ETH maximalist.
I'm not saying there's a goal for us to have as many chains as possible. That's what I'm saying. We're introducing more problems. And that was my. I'm not saying it shouldn't go cross-chain at all. Yeah.
I think having more chains, for sure there's going to be a lot of chains which are out there which are either just doing exactly the same thing as something else, but then how many forks of protocols on Ethereum are there of things doing exactly the same thing? Just, that's just something that happens with open source software as well. But I think there are different chains that actually are adding new value propositions. And I think the application specific approach makes a lot of sense to me intuitively. And also, I think Cosmos and Polkadot are both successful ecosystems. And having the ability to do your own hard forks, have your own consensus mechanism design, make modifications to the consensus layer, like without having to have like a global consensus on that. Just being able to iterate a lot faster adds like a lot of value to having your own chain. And it's kind of like this, you know, community consensus part. Like, do we have like the entire kind of blockchain community all agreeing on exactly the same way something would go? So that's why I think fundamentally there can never be a non-cross-chain ecosystem. And people should be able to switch like between like, one day I support this kind of way of an approach of doing things, and then maybe like the next day, like I've changed my mind and actually I prefer to use this thing or something, in like a broad sense of like the social consensus kind of like way of approaching things as well. So I think it's just, I mean, I know I said it at the start as well, but it's about like giving people choice, and clearly like people are choosing to do this whole cross-chain thing. So that's kind of what the market's showing that people actually want as well.
So can I take that?
I have one small thing. I think it's also to diversify the risk as well. Like if you just trust one chain or one protocol, and then let's say there's a glitch, and then there's a hack or something's happening, like you can always, you know, it's not that everything is fucked immediately. You can still say, okay, I'm going to switch to the other chain, or I'm going to move my assets from this place to the other one. So that's one thing to add, why it also makes sense to operate cross-chain.
Okay, so I think, I mean, cross-chain is always going to happen, and that like most chains are just going to try to tap into Bitcoin, to trap Bitcoin, to get Bitcoin into their chains, right? So I really liked, you know, when DeFi started to really flourish in Ethereum, that you started to get a lot of Bitcoin into Ethereum smart contracts, so as to promote and build the liquidity for all of these exchanges, right? Wrapped Bitcoin and all of this. So that's great. The only thing is, you know, all these bridges that you have that are normally or can become sometimes cash grabs, for lack of a better word, is because, okay, the opportunity is there because one ecosystem is growing, then you're going to need a bridge that builds from this ecosystem to the other ecosystem. Maybe it is regarding security, but at least, you know, we see that this sort of cross-chain between Bitcoin and other chains is going to be stable, because you can't just get rid of Bitcoin at some point, right? The whole thing with multi-chain, I think it's what we're trying to do, but there are certain things that you need to compromise on in order to sort of build this bigger vision of what is a multi-chain and how does it operate with each other. You know, all these different chains, at least in Polkadot, for parachains to communicate with each other, it turns out that it's quite complicated process, right? It's the same thing with Cosmos. So this is a really big approach, and it's the interesting thing about this, I think, is that we are trying to solve problems that are not really very apparent right now, but will become bigger problems in the future. Right now, we start to see all these hacks of centralized bridges, which is the major red flag right now. And later on, we will have problems about scalability, about compatibility, and all of this. That this is why the multi-chain makes sense, right? But for this moment, at least the cross-chain approach works. It's just the thing that, okay, how are you going to solve for that opportunistic approach of getting bridges across different chains without them getting hacked all the time, right? Trustless bridges would be fantastic, but then, you know, moving into that whole vertical is still like a long way down. So for now, it's still going to be the Wild West there until the multi-chain environments are able to solve for these problems that we are starting to see right now and the ones that start developing later on.
Cool. Alberto, you mentioned the magic word liquidity, and the fact that we are still in the cross-chain landscape. Let me ask, I see the liquidity trouble in the cross-chain ecosystem is one of the biggest problems now. I got a report a couple of months ago about how many wrapped tokens we have, and only for DAI there are hundreds of wrapped implementation. Yeah, we're wrapping it once and next time over each page. And at the end, we replicate in the crypto world the same problem we have in the traditional finance. Now, some derivatives without the true source. And I can imagine, Andreas, in your business, you're interesting to store real gold, not derivatives, or does it make any sense, this assumption?
Well, we store what customers, well, first we store private keys, not assets, right? We handle private keys and access to those private keys. The assets are stored on chain as usual. And we generally don't store wrapped assets, like not to a huge degree, but we store what customers want to store, right? So if the demand were there, we would do it. I don't think that's, I mean, so probably you can keep a custodian out of the loop there. But what was the question then about web tokens?
Yeah, I see that's a general financial problem in the crypto ecosystem, because you don't have real liquidity. It's a replicated liquidity in many cases, and that liquidity bounded in a centralized bridges. A lot of bridges are centralized to create and wrap Bitcoin. You need a custodian. It's also a centralized solution. So you run our beautiful decentralized ecosystem quasi with such approach.
So let me unpack this a little, right? Because first of all, bridges in general are a tricky thing, because you're bridging two chains, for example, two ecosystems, which means you're crossing two security models and you're introducing a third one that adds complexity. So that's a tricky thing. And that is why Polkadot and Cosmos are so intriguing concepts, right? Because they encapsulate that in so-called multi-chain ecosystems. They solve the problem on a high abstraction layer, in my opinion. So that's one problem with bridges. Second thing about those wrapped tokens, those are smart contract risks. So new risks even being introduced. But the main problem, I think, is because you touched the liquidity problem, the hunt for liquidity. That's also, I mean, by the way, I'm happy to take the antithesis of we have too many blockchains. I don't have a perfect answer there either. But what it leads to is the hunt for liquidity for new ecosystems. It's, by the way, not customers' choice, it's investors' choice to have all those new layer ones and hoping to become the next big thing. And then you have all these incentivization programs that make you grab liquidity from one ecosystem and pull it over to yourselves via bridges, via whatever. That's a terrible amount of energy, developer power, and so on, getting lost just to move liquidity from one ecosystem to another. For what? Basically for market share, right? To get more market share for one ecosystem. So that's my main problem with it. It's just wasted energy. You could use that energy to create great application-specific blockchains and so on. But this is about market power, in my opinion. And so I'm generally not a big fan of it. Oh no.
I can.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, this thing about liquidity, you know, this huge story came out the other day about Solana liquidity that was completely artificial, that this one person impersonated like 11 developers to create different projects and created massive liquidity, just duplicating and duplicating and duplicating assets. That's one thing, right? The derivative idea, it's a problem that the financial markets have had for ages, you know, like even that triggered also the 2008 crisis, which actually triggered the entire industry where we're at right now. So we fall into the same sort of sins of people that they used to be in the industry by wrapping and wrapping and wrapping. As long as like the asset is there, then you're going to have to reach out to the asset at some point, right? When we talk about specifically bridges and moving liquidity, a lot of it is just mainly centralized people just jump crypto. They got hacked. What was the name of that wormhole? And they got hacked for like 300 million or something, and immediately they just paid the check it's like that just tells you the amount of power that these institutions have. They just pay the check, pay the bill, and they go ask questions later on because poor of the man who decided to hack jump crypto. But then again, they did it because for them, 300 something million is peanuts, just as long to keep this bridge between Solana and Ethereum going, so that they could, keep up the volume and making the trades which are making them the money, which is, you cannot calculate it. If you come back for the retail use for all these bridges, you're going to use them a couple of times, but you're not going to be like market making or just jumping from one chain to the other, because as Andreas says, that's a huge amount of energy wasted in fees and movements and so on to create market efficiencies that could otherwise be solved, once there's more adoption or once retail comes back or something like that, some consolidation happens in layer ones or something like that. But the liquidity is always the same. It's just always going to follow like the major trend. And that is why we always see how sort of Bitcoin goes up first, then comes Ethereum, and then comes everything else. Right? I think.
I wanted to say, like, as long as there are these arbitrage opportunities that you say, okay, I wrap one token and then I exchange it for another because I can get a 3% more. People will always do this because they see the arbitrage, they want to have the profit, they want to swap one token with another, and I think it's super difficult to now stop the system. I mean, it's
a free market.
Yeah, it's a free market, and I don't think it's better than the derivatives. Like it's just a different form, and the new. I think it can only get better if there's like other ways of them moving funds along, like Cosmos or like Polkadot, because Polkadot has this really cool way of messaging called XCM, so cross-chain messaging. So when you are a parachain in the Polkadot ecosystem, you can open up a channel, and then that channel that goes through a governance process, and then you can say, okay, I trust the other chain. And then you can move tokens from one chain to the other without wrapping it, and that's it's quite new. I mean, I think it went live a few months ago. So, and there's no developer documentation of it yet. So it's really like just try and see where it goes. But it's one way of doing it better.
Or IBC.
Yeah,
IBC, yeah, or IBC.
Yeah, it's like a kind of similar design, although obviously I would advocate for IBC, but I think as well, I mean, it would be interesting to see then what would happen if you sent a token to another chain beyond the first destination parachain. There would surely be some like history associated with that token, because it's essentially made like two security assumptions with the like clients that are running on both of those chains. And I mean, we have the same in IBC. Like you have like essentially you have the IBC token denomination, which is like giving you information about the channel that this token has traveled down and the chain that it's originated from. And I mean, you like it's part of this kind of security assumptions that you're making with these other wrap tokens, and it's part of the history that the token has traveled down. But I think like in the long term, having like multiple hops and stuff, I think we will see that being reduced, and there will be like automated routing to try and reduce the number of hops that a token has gone down, because I think having a token that's actually gone like 7 steps is kind of illogical, and at the end of the day, it would have made sense to like reroute that token to its starting destination and then go directly to the 7th destination that you'd want to go to. So I think like a lot of bridge design that we see today, they're kind of made as it was like an easy solution to have this cross-chain interaction, but it's not the end solution that we're going to see in this like cross-chain future. I think like having these multi-sig bridges was just an easy way to like appease the market. It's there's essentially some technical debt there, which I think long term we'll see less of these kind of trusted bridges and more trust minimized bridges like IBC, such.
Okay, I already got several signs that we have slowly to round up our discussion.
I thought we were just starting now.
Yeah. For me as well. But maybe one question from someone. Yeah, please.
Hello, here Greg from Chain for Energy, and we are building sovereign blockchain for energy markets. And actually, this is maybe not a question, rather a comment, and adding some angle to the discussion. Because from our perspective, what is the most important is that we are building the infrastructure for the energy market, and we have to provide high-grade SLA, which is crucial from this perspective, and we cannot rely on some experiments or maybe some chains where somebody would like to build some monkeys and so on. And I know that building sovereign blockchain is like at the beginning is some kind of the centralization because founders have to deliver the roadmap. And I believe that IBC as a great technology, because we are building on 𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗏 SDK, is something that enables multi-chain, and in the future through governance we can give people power to decide what to do in the future with the solution. And this is kind of the comment. Maybe you can say what do you think about that?
I think Chain for Energy, might be less known, but it's probably one other example. And the best known example might be something like 𝗘𝗏𝗍𝗑𝗥. There are good reasons to have your own chain and keep in control, especially of the lower layers. 𝗘𝗏𝗍𝗑𝗥 was a layer 2 on Ethereum, or was based on Starkware, I think.
Yeah.
On Ethereum, and is now moving to its own Cosmos chain, and they have very good reasons to do so as the exchange that there are. So they're just good reasons to keep in control of the whole stack and customize everything to your needs. That's why you need solid and secure systems to communicate and interoperate between those ecosystems.
It also depends on two things, right? The use case of who is building a chain, like why do they need a chain? I see there's a lot of enterprise and a lot of people that come, especially in bull markets, that say, we need a chain now. I don't know why, I don't know for what, but we need it, right? So okay, that's one thing that maybe sort of as enterprise providers of solutions, people need to be more honest as well with these customers. So do you actually need a chain, or could you actually build an application on a chain? Could you actually leverage some of the existing technology, right? If we go back to the example of 𝗘𝗏𝗍𝗑𝗥 or ApeCoin or so on, the fact that the use case has a product market fit, right, supports the idea or the argument that this team specifically needs to build a chain, because the traffic that they have is so big that it doesn't make sense for them to compete in other environments with other applications for traffic or for block space, Ethereum or Polygon or Avalanche or whatever, right? It has to come up to the mainnet at some point, right? So I think in case of in all these terms of new use cases and new ideas that we're getting, the product market fit decides who is going to survive, who is going to need a chain, who is going to get more traffic. You can build just thousands of layer ones, but if they don't have product market fit because people didn't like them, then they're just going to die, right? If you get an application like Uniswap that is great, that it really actually defines that people prefer to exchange in a decentralized exchange than in a centralized exchange, then that one grows to a point that it starts to cover up a certain percentage of the mainnet, right? And these are the things that are sort of should be our compass to decide what, when, and where to build specific blockchains or just launch as an application. If you're a startup that is just validating an idea, then it doesn't make sense to build a chain. You can just build some sort of application on testnet, some other smaller blockchains, and see what is the response of the teams and see what is the response of the community in general. And time will tell. If you're sitting in a gold mine idea, then the need for a specific blockchain will arise. If you decided to do it with substrate framework on Polkadot or with the Cosmos SDK, then it's up to you, right? But then, I mean, you'll be needing to build that because the limitations of the existing ecosystem have brought you there. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you very much.
We just need Bitcoin and Lightning and all that.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. I'm a big proponent. I still have a lot of questions on my list, but it seems we have to discuss it in the party afterwards. Thank you very much for such exciting discussion.